Hello, everyone. This is a voiceover analysis slash commentary of a match between myself, Sean Lewis, Fargo 668, and Jeremy Barker, Fargo 498. This is the second set of two sets we played at my house the other day. The purpose for this, of course, is to, see how we're doing, judge our mistakes as far as what kind of things we need to work on primarily, and just see how we do in competition. So we're doing a race to 9 ball, alternate break. So I won the leg, I got the first break. I'm going to play this one off the side of the 4 because of the shape. Just so happens a little bit of draw played me over to that shape for the 2. Those carom shots, for those that are playing them, you got to understand a little bit about the mechanics, about what's going on, informationally speaking. The tangent line itself is the primary importance, but you also have to understand if the object ball is spinning, then you have to incorporate that into the throw, and then the rollingness or non-rollingness, the slidingness of the ball will affect the pathway, because typically there's going to be way less energy after the contact, so you might not get the angle that you expect unless you prepare for that. Excuse me. So I'm on the 4 here. Slopped it in. I was thinking about that. In that shot, I got a little bit less angle than I wanted. And I think I had a little bit of a negative mindset on that shot and just didn't give it a good opportunity. And for my game, that's what I'm always trying to recognize is, okay, I'm not really worrying so much about the shots. You're going to miss balls. But what you want to do, the hard part is to prepare yourself for the shot that's going on by giving it the best opportunity you can. So going into it with a negative mindset, which is what I was explaining there, for me is one of the best ways to miss. I want to go into it thinking that, I will know a shot that's going to make me be successful. And there's no reason to have the negative mindset, even for a brief moment. It is just a game. So anytime I see myself exhibiting those types of, attitudes, I try to shape up, and realize that it's all good and that that's what needs to change, and that's what's going to cause the balls to go in when I have a more positive mindset. So on that bank shot, I wanted to draw that, and I think that made it the cue ball shorten up the object ball's path, and that's why it went a little bit short. Not that was automatic. So here, if you cut the ball, either way is an option. I think that if you cut the 6, from my perspective, shooting to the left, there's a better chance of scratching in that corner pocket 2 rails. If you cut it to the right, it's a little bit tougher cut, but I think it's more automatic position, going 3 rails back. This is, I think, a little bit easier cut shot for me. And if you're going to play for the corner pocket on that shot, realize that it's a very small pathway. You're going directly across the line. If you play for the side like I have here, I came up short, obviously, then because the 9 is above the spot. It's a little bit easier. You just have to be comfortable with the shot. And I mean, if you'll notice, I had like 2 kind of mediocre to not great shots in a row, or like close together. And on that last 6 ball, I decided that I was like, okay, I noticed that I was not doing my thing. So I slowed down, reset myself as completely as possible before I shot that 6, which was, I believe, a tougher shot than, maybe some of the ones that I missed on paper. So it's 1-0. And again, the purpose of my commentary is not just to hear my own voice here. I'm just speaking towards anyone listening who wants to hear my thoughts about what's going on, things that I'm practicing currently, concepts that I'm helping people with, etc. So it's just kind of like a continuous brain dump every one of these Salado matches. Really would have been cool to make that ball. It's just a little bit of a tough cut. So here, I don't think you want to use left English because I think that makes the cue ball go into the 9 and the 6. You almost want to just hit high ball, and that'll make the cue ball go more into the rail and then straight out from the rail. Because I think you really want to go below the 2 here. I don't really see a pathway by going forward. Yeah, so that's what I kind of thought with left English there. You needed to go wider than that. The left English makes it come up higher. And there was no path really to get through there, except for going between the 8 and the 5. Could have gotten lucky by hitting the top of the 8, I guess. And again, that's just spending a little bit of more time with your precise understanding of where the ball's going to go after you hit it with this different spins. One drill I'd recommend doing is putting the object ball on the 1-1 diamond and then taking your cue ball and going like 1.5 diamonds up under the spot, basically like half diamond below the spot. So it's basically like a half ball hit, easy shot, and then using different Englishes and top and bottom and kind of standardizing and trying to hit each of the diamonds. If you cut it to the left, say, you go into the side rail and then back to the other side, and then you can play like second diamond, third diamond, side pocket. You don't want to scratch, but you need to know that angle. Then another diamond, and then you can even use draw, and then go to like the end rail diamonds off the 1 diamond. Was hoping to come up a little bit wider. So yeah, by standardizing, you take one shot and you repeat it, and then you just change one element about it, i.e. the English, and then now you're, use a similar speed and all that. Now you're basically understanding, okay, well, when I have center ball and I cut this thin, or half ball, it shows a little bit of the detail of like the throw and then the squirt and all that, but it's not much because you're not hitting it that hard. It kind of like that kind of stuff matters more when you hit it harder, but then you can see what kind of spin grabs a certain amount off the rail with the speed, and that's part of like just developing a feel and a knowledge of what's going on with being more precise with your application of English after contact with the rail, and that will just super huge improve your position play long term. Is just being a little bit more diligent about mastering the just basic elements of the game. Just like, okay, well, if I shoot a half ball hit with high ball English, when it hits the rail, what's going to happen? If I use, 1 o'clock, say you're using a clock system where 1 o'clock instead of 12, what's that going to do when it hits the rail? What's 2 o'clock going to do? And then once you have that all figured out, roughly speaking, now when you go and you play a shot on the table, like this 6 ball, for instance, it's a half ball hit here. So I know the initial tangent line, and now I'm basically deciding, okay, do I want to go forward? Or do I want to go 2 rails? And then what pathways do I want to receive here? So I decided to go forward. And if you're shooting a half ball hit into the collision off the side rail, or the end rail in this case, is going to be very predictable. And mostly you're not using so much speed that the systems are out of whack. Here I got on the rail a little bit. Normally I like to use inside to go 2 rails. I might use a touch of right English to go straight up, but I think on this shot actually I used left English and went forward under the 9 just to do it, because I'm working on that. And that makes shots not go in all the time, and really the better you get, the more you have to try things just to make sure that they do work, and just keep developing your game. So anytime it's a little bit touchy, you want to try to develop a deeper understanding of that. Why is it touchy? It's because you don't have a deep understanding. That's the answer mostly. The more you understand what's going on, the less question marks you have. Okay, so pretty good break. 3, 6, 7, 8. One on the ball, one, and then one on the break, and then shape on the 1. I'm just gonna make a fairly tough shot here and get on the 2, and then it's looking good from there. Really, this rack, if I can get above the 2 ball and make the 1, then everything is really pretty easy. I'd say the trickiest situation is going from the 4 to the 5, because the 8 is there. But that's only if you play to that side rail for shape. You could play... Yeah, I missed it. You could play above the 4 and then go down to the end rail, to the side rail, and then back to the middle of the table for the 5. Just as easily. And that would be great. You could play the 4 and then play the 5 in the side pocket above the 8. That's another opportunity. It's a little bit of a shorter position. So if you've been struggling so far in the match, and you're trying to decide, okay, what do I need to do to get back in it? 99% of the time, relaxing and taking it easy is the answer. If we continue to dwell on the situation, it doesn't really help us answer the problem of well, why is it bothering me so much anyways? This scenario, you know, is what it is. And, we come here to get better, so we gotta just like learn how to deal with the emotions that we have, and just get your information. Jeremy's looking good here as far as like taking his time, getting ready to shoot. Almost. I think just a little bit more of a free stroke. And I think a lot of that is just not playing on the 9-footer. It's a little bit tougher. Yeah, I think so far my analysis is leading me towards things to work on. Ooh, I almost missed that ball. Is thinking I think the main issue that I'm seeing is just kind of having a little bit too compact of a stroke and not having the ability to just let that extra little bit of power go that you need to and still have that comfort level. So I'd say with developing a little bit more of a power game is like mandatory for a 9-footer, and I think that's really where I'm really gaining max advantage because I'm not struggling with the stroke of the shots like Jeremy is, and it's just reps of being comfortable, learning how to hit the ball a little bit harder, and learning that you just need to be accurate with your swing without having to control it. It has to be grooved. So working on grooving your swing would be a great thing to work on. Hit the top of the side pocket. I made a little twitch there. Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm noticing about the swing, for me especially, is that in order to have a straight stroke, you either have to guide your hand completely straight through like the mechanism of using your elbow and your shoulder to rotate various ways, or you can isolate the movement down to just your elbow and your hand. Because with your elbow and your hand, if you're not in the shot line, you can never be in the shot line. the way that the hinge of the elbow works. If your hand is directly below your elbow and you're only activating your bicep and tricep and your hand is just holding the cue, then it's going to go on a straight line in the vertical plane. If we use too much shoulder to help assist the hand staying below the elbow, then now we've developed a three-dimensional plane, like a three moving parts swing versus one. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, where we try to like guide the cue ball, like, I don't know what the way to say it is. Maybe I'll think of it. I think of the swing is more like a pendulum is a good way to think of how it ideally works, where a pendulum just swings back and forth and it doesn't do anything. There's nothing causing it or like having to like adjust or adapt to make the weight swing on a straight line in the vertical plane. And that the theory of the pendulum stroke makes a lot of sense, in that if you isolate the elbow and you make the elbow the only thing that moves, then the shaft and the tip will go in a straight line right when it hits the ball. Right when it's hitting the cue ball, it's going to be going straight and returning to the exact position that you left it from. If you have too much movement, and like for instance, if you're swinging and your hand is not swinging towards your shoulder, it's going to be a struggle. And I think that's what's going on a little bit, is you're kind of like trying to point the cue to the ball instead of swinging the cue at the ball. Like the tip of the cue is not a finger. The tip of the cue is like the tip of a bat. Or the tip of a paintbrush, I guess. It has to hit the thing, not push into it. So like I've spent a lot of time trying to simplify the motion of my swing and make sure that any like inadvertent hand motions and all that are nullified as much as possible by making the like my hand, it does squeeze sometimes, especially on like harder shots, just to generate a little bit more power through timing, not so much using that like hand squeeze for like strength, like nervousness, but just to like generate more velocity through the timing. If you like look up kinetic linking, you'll see that a lot of power is just achieved through like stacking small leverage advantages, and by eliminating the need for those leverages on your like basic everyday stroke, then you can use those small leverages to gain advantage when you need them over the person that's using those small advantages just to like shoot a basic shot. Now when they need a tougher shot, then they got to develop that timing from somewhere else because they were already using it just to do something that you could have just done with just a swing and no moving parts, if that makes sense. It's like for any soft shot, like a rolling ball, I'm not using anything but just like the weight of the cue. Pull the cue back and kind of like with the pendulum, it elevates it, and that generates a little bit of potential energy. And then you just release that by letting your hand move back forward to its original spot, just like a pendulum. And then the weight converted from potential energy you know, to velocity by just allowing it to drop. Is what moves the cue, and then now you can use that for most shots, and then if you need to generate more power than you can get from that, that's when you start adding little leverages and all that to the shot, to your mechanics. And a lot of this is from, I don't know, I have a mechanical engineering degree, so I know a little bit more about body mechanics than the average Joe. But I also studied a couple like Olympic, or like an Olympic shot lifter that was started playing pool, and he was talking about the kinetic linking. And then if you play golf at all, you understand about coiling your body, and then you're going to move your hips, then your shoulders and all that in order to maximize your power transfer. And pool is no different. When you're talking about a small amount of power, which is what you need for pool, you don't have to like coil your body like you do. Maybe on the break you could consider doing that, because the break is kind of an athletic power shot. But on the pull stroke itself, most of the energy I think should just be generated from like the weight of the cue. Like you shouldn't be like swinging so hard forward with energy at all, hardly. It's more like by pulling back, you're coiling, and then by letting go, you're releasing the coiled energy when you strike the ball. Alright, on this shot, let's try to draw straight back. Sorry, I haven't been commentating too much on the game itself. Sort of took over. This is the second set. Jeremy had a tough first set and wants to go again. But I don't know that he's fully reset himself. So we're still riding the same wave, basically, from the first set, which I've won handily. And looking at his posture in the chair, folded arms and crossed legs, is a little bit more of a finality to it than if you were like really thinking that you were going to win. Not that he's supposed to expect to win, but it's difficult not to generate expectation in pool, especially when you're sitting in the chair. There's a lot to learn from the spectator's chair. Not the spectator's chair, but the other competitor's chair. The guy that's sitting in the chair. There's a lot of things that happen there that, barely, that you have to learn. You got to learn how to be comfortable when the other person is comfortable. Like if I'm playing well, which I'm playing pretty good right now, if the other guy is not comfortable because I'm playing good, then now when he comes to the table, he's going to be nervous. So you got to learn how to like see that someone is comfortable, to see that someone is playing well, and have that motivate you. Take his energy and make it your energy. I really liked, and then side note on that shot on the 9, I like to play the angle of that 2 to 3 rails back to the end of the table, through the middle of the table, just so I can put a good stroke on it. And then it's just, you basically just practice that shot constantly, because you get that angle a lot. Dry break. Got to work a little bit more on the consistency of the break, I'd say. And some of that, the breaking consistency, again, comes from just not being able to generate as efficiently the power that you need to break, like effortlessly. I wouldn't say effortlessly is the right necessary word for the way I break. There's much higher level players than me, but once you get your timing of everything proper, you're going to maximize your own power and reduce the amount of effort required to get enough power. This is looking pretty good. The tough shot here is 6 to the 7. That's not even that tough. 8 to the 9 can be tricky if you get poorly on the 7 to the 8. Now here's one of those situations where the English is proper. If you use center ball punch, you're going to be a little bit too low. See, I just missed the ball. I was trying too hard to get underneath the 5 like that so I could stay above the 6. It was a good shot. One thing I think that would be helpful is to look when you're looking at the contact point of the shot. Spend a little bit more energy thinking about where your cue ball position is going to end up, so that you can use that information to help you figure out what English and speed and all that is going to be used, and see that before you are addressing the cue ball, so that when you get down on the cue ball you already have all that information. Because I think sometimes if you get down on the ball and you might have the right angle, but then you realize you got to hit it softer or harder, that can actually change the required angle. And that if you have that information like worked out in your mind, that helps with your ball pocketing and your position play, because you're doing more of the work before you get down. Ideally, the shot should be completely set before you get down, and you're just shooting the shot the way that you had already planned to do it, versus making the plan at the moment that you're shooting it. If that makes sense, it should be, I believe, delineated into two separate actions, where the visualization and the planning of the shot is its own separate part of the process. And then once you've completed the design, then you initiate the execution, and learning how to separate those two over time while this is all happening in the pool game is a pretty important thing. Here again, I'm going to try to play 2 rails through the middle of the table, and I just missed the shot. With that being said, I like to shoot that shot every time that way. So on this shot, it looks to me as though the bank in the side is the proper shot. There's an argument for banking in the corner and an argument also for cutting all the way down. I think of those shots, bank it in the side is the one I prefer. This left me pretty close to it. I like to hit this with a little bit of low and a little bit of right. I feel like that helps with the gearing action so that you get a good release. Six to 0. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to try to play. I was thinking 2 rails, but the 6 is there, so then the third rail you just have to make sure that you're going right into that third diamond, or the 3.5 really, and you're avoiding the side. Otherwise I was going to use like high right English, but then you're playing across the line, across the zone of the position, so you got to be careful about that. I prefer to shoot every shot into the zone of position. And then if you can't shoot it into the zone of position like so easily, some shots it's not so important. Like where the 4 is at, there's a lot of different ways where you can still get shape. You don't even necessarily need to be on one side or the other, as long as you're not too far on one side. I was erring on the side of this side, knowing that if I get too far the other way, then the 9 can be blocking me and being in play. But here I just need to make a little bit of a different shot. Flirted with the side, but I knew that was going to happen. I did hit it a little bit harder than I wanted to. Again, here, this shot, if I come up short, I can play 3 rails. If I'm like this, I can use inside English. Okay, I got a little bit of the original 3 rails position. If I was a little bit straighter, I could have used inside and highball. Alright, so 2 on the break. It looks like the 1 sneaks past the 6. Ooh, very close. When you're shooting balls that are in the pocket, you gotta be very careful. The rails are very close, so the spin and the angles are a little bit. You gotta pay attention to that. The ball is super easy to make, but you do have to be precise with that contact point because it will affect how the rails are gonna be in play after contact. Like I played that, cut the one to the right so that I could play into the rail and then back up. Sometimes the ball's too deeply to play to cut and then go to the rail. I think I'm just going to punch to the side rail. If you get more steep than that, you can play beyond the four to the corner, beyond the four to shooting in the corner to playing it for the side. Yeah, and those like controlled draw shots, they really, really try to bear down and pay attention to what the cue ball needs to do. And then I backtrack. See, I hit that ball too full. That's why I didn't go as far as I wanted it to. Just overcut it a little bit. I like playing this with the low left. Jeremy and I had spoken about this shot because I think he played high left, ended up missing it. But you want a little bit of low to get more grip. A little bit stretched out here. Overrolled my spot. You always want to play your positions on the wide side. See how the nine's to the left of corner? You want to play to the right side. Just give yourself more area to work around. Ideally, you don't want to play any shot off the rail. You know, not that that's an option. It just is what it is. kind of tough on this ball. I don't even remember if the right thing. I mean, you can go for it. I like playing safe here most of the time. Got there with my shot. I have been playing banks in practice with my girlfriend for 2 years straight, basically, so my banking's gotten a little bit better. So I've been trying to employ that more with my pool game, and it seems like it's helped. I definitely recommend learning how to bank the balls. It's good for your stroke. Missed that too unnecessarily. It's good for your stroke and your like ball pocketing, and just a good thing to do, just to work on stuff that always needs help. On that shot, I kind of got down and shot it really fast. It's a little bit of inconsistency. That each shot, I think you want to like learn how to have the same timing. Like I said, this kind of comes from like, if you're using the same timing, that means that the shot isn't dictating what you're doing with your stroke, as far as like deviating from the fundamental stuff. The more like locked in your stroke is, the less each shot is important. You're just hitting it all the same way as far as like the setup and everything. The timing of each shot, should be very consistent. Like you've already thought, how hard do I have to hit it, so you don't have to do several practice strokes to like get a feel for that. Double hit that ball to make it, but it is what it is. Maybe the right shot here is to shoot all the way down, but I can cut this in the left corner or the left side, so it's very thin. But I think that if I just hit it to make it and slow, then it should be the best I can do. Otherwise, I have to like shoot a stop shot and elevate. Yeah, and I was playing. Thought I was gonna get past it. I think shooting combos is very tricky, right? You want to backtrack from the 9, making the 9 to like, where does the 6 have to go to make the 9 go, and then where does the cue ball have to hit the 6, and then you have to see all the English and all that stuff as well. We just shoot this in the corner with draw. I don't think the scratch is there if you actually put draw on it. You have to draw it though, of course. I think it could scratch, obviously. Be checking your stroke here. Good shot, just a little bit too much. See, all these are very close to being good. Had you like under-rolled a little bit, this would be like rolling in to 8 and then making the 9. Just a little bit off. So, it's easy to get, down on yourself because you're not completing these outs, but the shots themselves are very close to being proper, and that's really what matters. Maybe a bridge here is proper. Well, that was that. All right, well, on that note, I'm going to run these last two balls, and thank you for watching if you made it to this point. I appreciate everyone. Jeremy, hope you're doing great, and hope you learned something here that can help you. Obviously, I'm around. Hit me up whenever. Thanks, everybody. Have a great one.